The VHS tapes of Black Wood Manor. The year is 2012. Emily, a college student with a passion for urban exploration, stumbles upon a hidden box during a visit to her grandparents' attic. Inside, she finds a collection of aged VHS tapes labeled Black Wood Manor. Intrigued, Emily decides to document her experience watching the tapes, uploading her findings to a popular horror forum. The first tape opens with a shaky shot of a dilapidated Victorian mansion shrouded in fog. A young man, introduced himself as David, explains that he's inherited Black Wood Manor and is spending the weekend cleaning it out. As David explores the dusty halls and overgrown gardens, Emily narrates her observations, pointing out unsettling details like disembodied whispers and fleeting shadows. In the following tapes, David delves deeper into the manor's history, uncovering a dark past involving a wealthy family and a series of mysterious disappearances. Strange occurrences plague David: flickering lights, doors slamming shut on their own, and the constant feeling of being watched. Emily, increasingly spooked by the footage, starts noticing similar oddities in her own apartment: objects moving on their own and cryptic messages scrawled on her notebooks. As David ventures into the manor's hidden basement, the tapes take a disturbing turn. The once charming house transforms into a labyrinth of claustrophobic corridors and hidden rooms. David uncovers a hidden shrine adorned with occult symbols and disturbing family portraits with eyes that seem to follow him. The final tape shows David in a state of utter terror, his voice strained as he documents a dark entity lurking within the manor's walls. The recording abruptly ends with a blood-curdling scream. Disturbed and shaken, Emily reaches out to other forum users for help. She discovers that Black Wood Manor does exist, located in a remote area with a documented history of disappearances. Enlisting the help of a fellow explorer, Emily ventures to the location, armed with her camera and a growing sense of dread. The manor they find is eerily similar to the one in the tapes. Following cryptic clues hidden within the footage, they explore the house, each creaking floorboard and flickering light adding to the mounting tension. As they delve deeper, the entity from the tapes manifests, a swirling mass of darkness that feeds on their fear. A desperate struggle ensues, documented on camera by Emily. The entity seems to draw strength from the darkness, and they are forced to retreat back to the outside world. Just as they escape, Emily catches a glimpse of a figure watching from an upper window, a figure that bears an uncanny resemblance to herself. The story ends with Emily uploading the final footage, pleading with viewers to help her unravel the mystery of Black Wood Manor and the sinister entity that has become fixated on her. Atmosphere leave viewers with a sense of unease, wondering if Emily has truly escaped the clutches of Black Wood Manor. The comments flooded in after Emily uploaded the Black Wood Manor footage. Theories ranged from skepticism to blind horror, but one comment stood out. It was from a user named Blackwood Descendant, claiming to be a relative of the original family. They offered cryptic warnings, urging Emily to destroy the tapes and forget about the manor. Driven by a morbid curiosity and a growing sense of dread, Emily decided to confront Blackwood Descendant. The username led her to a dusty genealogy website, and after digging through digital archives, she found a faded photograph. It was a picture of the Blackwood family from the early 1900s, and chills ran down her spine as she recognized a familiar face, her own staring back from the photograph, uncanny in its resemblance to a young woman standing beside the patriarch. A wave of paranoia washed over Emily. Was she connected to the Blackwood family in some way? Was the entity targeting her because of this bloodline? The answer seemed to lie back at Blackwood Manor. Ignoring the warnings, Emily and her friend, armed with research and a healthy dose of fear, embarked on a second expedition. This time, they were prepared. They packed cameras, flashlights, and even a rudimentary EMF detector, hoping some scientific tool could debunk the horror they were experiencing. The journey back to the manor was shrouded in an unsettling silence, broken only by the unsettling crunch of gravel beneath their tires. As they approached the house, the air grew thick and oppressive. The once grand manor seemed even more decrepit, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at them. Stepping inside, they were met with a stale, suffocating smell. The air crackled with an unseen energy, and the EMF detector went berserk, its needle spinning wildly. Following the clues gleaned from the tapes and their online research, they ventured deeper into the house, this time towards the basement. The deeper they went, the stronger the connection Emily felt to the place. It was as if the house itself was whispering secrets to her, urging her to remember something forgotten. The basement was a labyrinth of damp corridors and broken furniture. Cobwebs draped like ghostly curtains, and the only light came from their flickering flashlights. A cold dread filled Emily, a feeling of being watched, of being prey. Suddenly, a bone-chilling shriek pierced the silence, and a dark shape materialized before them. It was the entity from the tapes, a swirling vortex of inky blackness that pulsed with an unnatural energy. This time, it was bigger, more powerful, its form feeding on the terror it inspired. A desperate fight for survival ensued. Emily and her friend fought back with blasts of light from their flashlights, momentarily pushing the entity back. In the struggle, Emily stumbled upon a hidden room, a dusty nursery untouched by time. A rocking chair creaked back and forth eerily, and a crib held a collection of old dolls, their porcelain faces grotesquely contorted. As Emily approached, she felt a strange pull, a connection to this room she couldn't explain. Suddenly, a memory flickered to life, a hazy image of a young girl with familiar eyes, playing in the rocking chair. The memory was fleeting, but it was enough. In that instant, Emily knew. She wasn't just connected to the Blackwood family. She was a descendant, the girl from the nursery, trapped in a cycle of fear by the entity that feasted on Blackwood Manor's dark history. The revelation struck her like a physical blow. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the truth. The entity wasn't just after her. It fed on the negative emotions of all who entered the house. With newfound determination, Emily resolved to break the cycle. She grabbed a doll, its porcelain face mirroring her own, and held it up to the entity. "This is what you feed on," she cried. "This fear. But I'm not afraid anymore." As she spoke, she poured all her positive emotions, her love for life, her will to survive, into the doll. The entity recoiled, its form flickering in confusion. Seizing the opportunity, Emily and her friend fled Blackwood Manor, leaving the entity to dissipate in the darkness. Back in the safety of their world, Emily knew the ordeal wasn't over. The entity might be weakened, but it still existed, and the Blackwood Manor stood as a monument to its dark power. Uploading the final footage to her horror forum, Emily vowed to use her experience to warn others. The Blackwood tapes were a chilling reminder that some places held a darkness that could not be erased, and the fight against fear was a constant battle. The unanswered question remained: had she truly broken the cycle, or was she simply the latest chapter in the tragic saga of Blackwood Manor? The chilling views on Emily's final video only solidified her resolve. She pored over historical records, deciphering cryptic genealogies, and discovered a disturbing truth. The Blackwoods weren't just any wealthy family. They were practitioners of a dark occult ritual that sustained the entity. Each generation, a Blackwood descendant was sacrificed to appease the entity, trapped within the manor's walls. The realization was horrifying. Emily wasn't just a descendant, she potentially was the next sacrifice. Sleep became a luxury she couldn't afford. Nightmares plagued her, visions of the shadowy entity coiling around her, its whispers promising oblivion. The once comforting familiarity of her apartment morphed into a suffocating cage. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down her spine. Driven by a desperate hope, Emily revisited the online forum. Blackwood descendants' message echoed: "Destroy the tapes." A chilling thought emerged. What if the tapes weren't just recordings, but vessels containing fragments of the entity's essence? Destroying them could be the key to severing its hold on her and Blackwood Manor. Despite the reservations of her friend, Emily decided on a daring plan: return to Blackwood Manor, armed with the remaining tapes, and confront the entity at its source. The journey was a blur of mounting dread. The once picturesque countryside morphed into a desolate wasteland as they neared the manor. A thick fog rolled in, swallowing the house in an eerie silence. This time, they weren't trespassers. Emily was a Blackwood returning home, and the manor seemed to acknowledge her presence. The rotting wood groaned beneath their steps, and the air hung heavy with the scent of decay. As they ventured deeper, the whispers from the tapes seemed to emanate from the walls themselves, a chorus of malevolent voices. Following an intuitive pull, Emily bypassed the familiar corridors and descended into a hidden passageway, revealed by a loose brick in the basement wall. The passage was narrow and damp, the air thick with dust and the stench of mildew. Claustrophobia gnawed at Emily, but she pressed on, a newfound determination fueling her steps. The passage opened into a vast, cavernous chamber. Unlike the rest of the manor, this room was pristine, its walls adorned with arcane symbols that pulsed with an otherworldly light. In the center stood a monolithic stone altar, and upon it lay a collection of VHS tapes, identical to the ones Emily possessed. Understanding dawned on her. These weren't mere recordings, they were pieces of a malevolent puzzle, anchoring the entity to the manor and the Blackwood bloodline. With trembling hands, Emily grabbed a tape and shoved it into her pocket. A wave of nausea washed over her, a psychic scream resonating in her mind. The entity had sensed her intrusion. A cold wind swept through the chamber, extinguishing their flashlights and plunging them into darkness. Panic surged through Emily, but she forced herself to focus. Grasping for the lighter in her pocket, she flicked it on, a tiny flame defying the encroaching darkness. She held it to the remaining tapes, the flames licking hungrily at the plastic. The air crackled with unseen energy. A monstrous shriek filled the chamber, a sound that seemed to claw at Emily's sanity. The shadows writhed, coalescing into the entity's inky form, its tendrils lashing out in a fury. But Emily wouldn't back down. She fed tape after tape into the flames, a silent prayer on her lips. With each burning tape, the entity weakened, its form flickering and distorting. The chamber pulsed with a blinding light, forcing them to shield their eyes. When the light subsided, they were left breathless in the echoing silence. The entity was gone, the malevolent presence lifted. Exhausted but exhilarated, Emily and her friend emerged from the manor. The fog had cleared, revealing a breathtaking sunrise. Blackwood Manor, bathed in the golden light, seemed less menacing, almost serene. Had they truly vanquished the evil? A sliver of doubt lingered, but for now, they were alive. As they drove away, Emily cast a final glance at the receding manor. A single black raven perched on a crumbling gargoyle, its beady eyes seeming to follow them. Was it a bad omen, or a silent guardian? Only time would tell. The fight may have been won, but the battle against the darkness, Emily knew, would likely continue.